Hey everyone, my guest today is Adam Pascal. Adam rose to global fame when he was cast in the role of Roger in the original production of Rent, and then inhabited the role again for the film version of Rent and the West End version of Rent and the world tour of Rent, all the Rents. Some of his other Broadway credits include Aida, Cabaret, Memphis, Chicago, Disaster, and Something Rotten. You're going to recognize these titles: Model Prisoner, Civilian, and Blinding Light, because those are the names of his albums. He's currently working on and performing this incredible solo show. I'm drunk, Adam. I'm drunk.
That's all right. I'm high. So there we go. It's going to be a
Perfect.
great interview.
Solo show so far, correct?
Yes.
And that is a show that explores his personal journey as an artist through storytelling and song. And he'll tell us more about that today. I'm so thrilled to catch up with you today. It's
Likewise.
ridiculous.
Oh, you're so sweet. Likewise. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. As we speak, it's 25 years since I first saw you do Roger in Rent, which is so crazy. Time is
I
so
know.
crazy. But really, the story of that show, I'm sure, is part of the solo show you're doing, among other things. But you got to give the people what they want, Adam.
I have learned that over the years. As much as I've resisted it over the years, I've learned that that is true. You have to give them what they want. It's not what you want. It's what they want. So I've embraced that. And yes, I do. I totally talk about how I got into doing musicals, and how I got into Rent, but which is also my story about how I got into doing musicals. It's the same story. Um,
Is
and
it
so
apocryphal or is it true? I know you and Adina went to the same high school. I think that's a fact. But is it
that is a
true
fact.
that she is somehow the reason that you ended up being cast in the show? And tell the
That is
story.
true.
Okay.
That is true. Well, the reality of the story is a little bit different than the story that I tell on stage. To be quite honest with you,
Okay.
like when you tell the same story over and over again for years, and it kind of morphs into something, and then you kind of forget what the actual truth of the original story was because it's morphed so much. Well, so basically, essentially that is true. I got a call from her then boyfriend, Glenn, who was a buddy of mine. I've known her since third grade. We've literally been to school, elementary, middle school, like, I mean, everything. She lived down the block from me, totally down the block from me. Um, and, um, and so, so she had gotten cast in the show. So he and she knew about this role of Roger. They knew about the show that she was about to do. And they knew that they said that the character sounded just like me, and they were opening up the casting to anyone who wanted to audition. So Idina and Glenn called me, um, and said that we're doing this show. The only difference in the story that I tell on stage is I just omit Glenn's name from the story. It's kind of irrelevant, poor Glenn, but but yeah. So Idina called me and said she was doing this off Broadway show and did I want to audition, and so she kind of made it sound interesting, and I went in and they made it sound interesting, and so I
So
went in.
does Idina like call Bernie Telsey for you, or do you have to kind of figure out how to get an audition on your own? Like, how does
No,
that piece
it
happen?
well, it was an I remember it was an open call, and
Okay.
and and I think interestingly enough, Idina's boyfriend at the time, Glenn, worked for a talent agent, and that's how I ended up getting the information of where to go. And it was like, it's not like Bernie Telsey's office now. It was some closet that like he rented for the afternoon, like just to see people. you know and so yeah, I just I showed up with my guitar and just played a song. Like, it was just, and there was like four other guys there, and I remember sitting there and guys would go before me and I can hear them sing. I was like, that guy sucks.
That's so much better because I'm always in the waiting room going, oh my God, they sound so good. I'm going to
Well,
go
these days,
home.
yes. Back then, yeah, back then in that situation, no. But yes, no, that's what happens now.
But
Now
that's
I'm like,
so
oh my
good.
God, I don't want to
And
follow
now I'm
that
like,
guy.
oh, they're so young. They're so young. How amazing. And what did you sing?
I sang a song from U2's Joshua Tree record called "The Red Hill Mining Town," and I actually played in my concert.
So let me ask you, you were, and I think part of why Idina and Glenn and everyone was like, this is a great idea, because at the
Yeah,
time they were like, let's have the people who are as much like these characters, if possible, do this
right.
show. At the time, they didn't know it was going to be a Broadway show and that it would
Sure.
go on for 25 years and the next 125 years. Um, you were a rock and roller, right? Like that was
Yes.
your, like Roger. I mean, you had
Right.
this dream.
Exactly. I grew up in on Long Island and in New York City, and I played in rock bands, and in those ways, like the character, I had these same dreams of rock stardom, and and hence the song One Song Glory, and wanting to leave some piece of something behind after you're gone so that you will be remembered by it. And it's interestingly enough, the irony is me, like him, wanted that same thing, and now I am connected to this show and that song, which does exactly that.
It's so heady, right?
Yeah.
It's so meta and
Yes, I was just
heady,
gonna say
the
it's
whole
meta. It's very
thing.
meta.
But you had not acted before. Were you doing high school musicals? I shouldn't
No,
say you had not acted. My assumption is.
no, your assumption is correct. I had not. And so no, I, once I started playing in bands, that was the only thing that ever entered my thought process. It never occurred to me to be an actor. I never wanted to be an actor. It's just like I'm a singer in a rock band. That's what I do. And so that was where my mind was for all of those years.
And so, did you get there surrounded by um, people who had done it before, most of whom had done it before on some level? Anthony obviously had been a child actor, so he brought a lot
Right,
of professional experience to the thing. Michael
right,
Greif obviously knew how to create an ensemble and a family and tell this story and make sure everyone felt confident in what they did in the
right.
story. Did you feel, because you were so young and game, did you just jump in, or were you like, guys, I don't know if this is a good idea?
No, I just jumped in, and I just jumped in, and so early on in the process, almost immediately, I felt this level of almost familiarity to the
Mhm.
process, even though I had never done it before. A comfort level that that I had never felt singing in a rock band. And so it immediately felt just very natural to me to be doing this with all these people, and they were so encouraging and uh, you know gracious in their spirit, and their understanding of my lack of experience. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so, had I not been with this group of people, I don't know if I would have been able to, you know, ultimately give the performance I was able to give. If I was surrounded by people who didn't have maybe the same level of patience with my inexperience that they all had.
And what did Jonathan tell you, when I assume you were able to sit with him and have him share who this person is and what he wanted this person to do in the story? What were some things that you remember that you can share about what he wanted for Roger? And did
Well,
you think you were playing him?
no, no, I never thought I was playing him.
Okay.
I definitely thought that he, if anybody, it was more Mark that was him. You know
Okay.
what I mean? Certainly in the way that the character thinks, I think that definitely Mark was more Jonathan than Roger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I remember him mentioning specifically Kurt Cobain to me once, um, but he never gave me too much about it because I think he wanted to allow, he wanted to give me the opportunity to discover this sort of person on my own. And I think maybe he might have recognized that because this person and I were so close, that for the same reason he wanted to then have allow me to have the opportunity to discover that, because so much of this was already in me, these feelings that this character was going through was, so many things similar to the things that I was going through. And but I really think that I mean, you obviously know what an "I Want" song is. If people in the audience don't know what an "I Want" song is, it's sort of, it's like that song in the show that the character sings that really kind of, as best they can, sum up what it is their motivation is, in the show or whatever. And One Song Glory really is like one of the greatest "I Want" songs I've ever heard. Forget about whether you actually like the song or not, but if you think about it lyrically and what he's saying, like, it really is encapsulating everything you need to know about this character right now, in a really, really great way, a clear way.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal storytelling. I mean,
Yeah.
it's perfect storytelling. Um, when you said before there was something about being in a play or a musical in this case that felt more at home in some
Yes.
ways than when you were in a band with your friends.
Yes.
What do you think that is?
I think it's several things. Um, I always felt like an imposter, and this is, of course, with years of retrospective thinking, but
Yeah.
I always felt like an imposter as the singer in a rock band. I so desperately wanted to be Bono, I so desperately wanted to be John Bon Jovi, but I wasn't, and part of me knew that.
Mhm.
Subconsciously, part of me knew that. And so I think so there was always an element that seemed a little bit off about that. And I just wasn't in my home yet. I hadn't found my home yet, and I'm so unbelievably grateful that I did find a home. You know what I mean? But that, so I think that was a big part of it. You know what I mean? Another part is that I felt, um, and this is a thing that singers in rock bands can really connect with, I think, when I talk about this, which is that, you know, that charisma that you want to have, that's not about you're performing the songs, it's about how you engage the audience in between the songs. You know what I mean? It's that charisma that is
Right.
so vital to being a rock star. You know what I mean? To the biggest rock stars in the world have that. They have that ability to hold an audience even if they don't say anything. You know what I mean? Like, there's whatever their thing is, you know what I mean? Whether it's something quiet and introspective but still holds that audience, or whether it's Bono talking about the things he's talking about, or whatever it is, whether it's David Lee Roth being a there's so many different versions of it, but I didn't have any version of it.
But
And
how
so,
amazing that you got to play the guy who did,
right.
Allison Janney, I remember her telling me this story that she had to play a queen in this
Mm-hmm.
play. And she was like, queen, how can I be a queen? Like, I don't, and the director was like, no, you don't have to do anything. Everyone's going to treat you like the queen. And
Right.
because they are treating you like a royal person,
Right.
you are a royal
Right.
person. And
Right.
there's something about those musicians that you mentioned that somehow it intuited or inherently had that feeling without other people having to give it to them first,
Exactly.
which is some innate thing you're born with, right? Like the
I
it boy or the
Yes.
it girl or this star quality that people
Yes.
talk about. Charisma is the word,
Right,
right?
right. And it's right, and it's a very specific charisma to that
Yeah.
skill and that thing. You know what I mean? Because you
And
could take
that
any one of
person.
those, right, you could take any one of those guys out of that environment and out of what it is that they do, and that brilliant charisma that they
Mm.
can hold 100,000 people in a stadium, and put them in a different type of performing scenario, and they'll fall on their face, and that charisma won't save them, and it won't matter. You know what I mean? And so it's really about the specific skill to the specific thing that you're doing. And yeah, so I just didn't have that, at least in the way that I wanted it.
Or at that
And so,
age. I mean, you were
or at
so
that age.
young, right? How old
Right.
were
He's
you when
right.
you got cast in the show?
Well, I was 25. So you think of the years that I was playing in a band, I was a teenager,
You
and
were a
like,
baby.
of course,
Yeah, I
um,
know. And thank God for us. Thank God for us. We Broadway stole you first, or got you, or this thing
I feel
happened.
the same way. Thank God. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you, I mean, you kept going. There was this run of shows that starred you one after the other. And then I remember when you and Sherry Renee Scott did Aida's, shortly thereafter, Shigaboom Records was created by Sherry and her then husband, Kurt Deutsch. And suddenly all of these incredible performers that they were working with on Broadway stages had this label where they could make their own music. And you were one of the first artists that I recall.
It was Sherry's solo record and my solo record were the first two records that Shigaboom put out. Yeah.
So then I only bring that up because now there's this moment where you do go back to this thing you want to do, which is as Adam, not behind a character. And it worked. And then you started to do that. But Rent keeps pulling everybody back in who's in that original cast because it's just too good to pass up each time it comes around.
Well, certainly over the years, I mean, look, I'm certainly at a place now where that ship has sailed, but you know, yes, it did keep coming back up at opportune moments that seemed appropriate, you know, and so after I left, I'll just give you the whole timeline. So it was it was off Broadway, then it was Broadway, a little bit of a break, then it was London. Me and Anthony and Jesse and Wilson went to London and we opened it in London. Yeah. So that was like 6 months or a year or something like that. Then there was, and then there was a long break. And then there was the movie. Then there was the movie in 2005. And then Anthony and I went back to Broadway for the summer of 2007. And then we did the national tour in 2009. And that took us through like 2009 into whatever it was, 2010 and a half.
Can we talk about the beautiful human that is Anthony Rapp for
yes,
a
we
moment?
Certainly can. For hours, we can talk about that.
For hours. You guys were in London when he auditioned for Charlie Brown, which is the show I got to meet him on. And I've told this before, but every once in a while he would sing as a warm-up for Charlie Brown some songs for Rent that just landed exactly where he needed to vocally. Yes. And I, as someone who just had loved that musical, do you think you would have loved it as much as everyone else loves it if you aren't in it?
That's such a great question, and I think about that all the time. I really do.
No.
Well, it's really an I don't know. You know, it's an I don't know. I think about a lot of things sort of connected to that. Like I think about yes, would I have liked it? Would I have auditioned for it? You know, had it be if I had never been you know, and then I sort of extrapolate from that and think about, well, would I have tried to go on American Idol, like if I, you know, or like The Voice, or, you know, like I think about had my career not gone in the way that it had gone, would I have tried those different paths, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So either. Glad I didn't have to.
I'm so glad you didn't either. And I think about relationships that formed, marriages that happened, you know, through that show.
And ended.
Are you still married?
I am not.
Okay. So how long have you been divorced?
We're actually not divorced, but we've been separated for about 1.5 years.
Okay. But you have 2 incredible boys.
I do. Yeah.
How old are they now?
They are 17. Yeah, they're 17 and 19. Lennon is going to be a sophomore in college, and Monty is going to be a senior in high school.
Okay, so Lennon is almost the age you were when you did Rent.
A few years younger, but yeah, he's almost 20.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
That's pretty exciting. So I want to know about the show that you're doing, and sort of because even though, you know, we're talking on a specific day in August, this is something that people, I imagine, will be able to see past this moment in time somehow, right?
Yes. So right now the show is being streamed on the 17th, I believe, and I'm going to be part of that experience in that I will be there live with people watching it, and I don't exactly know even what's going to happen, but I'll be there in some capacity.
Yeah.
And then it will be available for the week following that, and then I would imagine if it does well, maybe they'll release it again. You know, it's it's there, it exists. And so if people want to see it and there's any demand for it after that initial week, then I'm sure they will have the opportunity to do that.
Is it I know you and Anthony actually go around the world performing a show that you guys do together. You have your solo albums, you have a band and a partner in a band. When you are by yourself now, not surrounded by, an ensemble of people that become your family.
Yeah.
What is that experience like for you?
Well, it's terrifying, certainly
Hmm.
in many ways, but also in many ways it's what I have been working towards, maybe even unknowingly and unwittingly. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
like, because I have slowly been um, um, whittling away at the number of musicians that I play with. You know, for reasons, quite frankly, that started from and still exist that are financial. You know,
Hmm.
like, I don't want to pay anybody. You know, I don't make a lot of money at these gigs, and a lot of times they are my only income. Like, if I'm
Right.
not doing a Broadway musical, I don't do a lot of TV and film. Like, it's like my career is like theater and then my music career, and so
Yeah.
it just became more financially viable to me for me to do this by myself.
Right.
And so, okay, that being the case, now how do I make an entertaining show?
Yeah.
With those parameters, and so that's kind of how it ended up getting pared down. Again, makes it no less terrifying, but I've been doing it now for a while, and I have found the way of doing it that works for me, sort of my style of storytelling, my style of communicating with the audience, and my musical style, and the way that I adapt these songs that I'm playing to me and my acoustic guitar and my little effects pedal that I have.
So the scariest part of anything is starting, right? Like you
Yeah,
go out there and you have to open your mouth and it's you
yeah,
and start. So when you're writing this piece, let's just focus on this one because you've done others and you'll do more.
yeah,
But for today, we're talking about this solo show
yeah,
that we're
yeah.
so excited about. Like what's the first line? How did you start? And is it what you first wrote or has it morphed into something else now?
Well, nothing was ever actually written. It
Okay.
was really just it came out of these stories that I would tell on stage, but um, without any sort of cohesive connection between the songs and the story. So, like, I would certainly tell my story of how I got into Rent, and then I would sing One Song Glories as part of another show, but then I would play something else that had no connection to anything. You know what I mean? And so, like,
Yeah.
there was no through line, and so, and also, the Rent songs would generally come at the end as maybe the encore. So it really just it came out of a number of different stories that I would tell, in different sort of shows. And I finally also got to the point in my career where I had done enough shows on Broadway that that I could put a show together that was long enough to be an entertaining hour. So the timing of it seemed right. And so it just seemed like, and it was, again, it was very natural because, in ways that the story and the show is laid out for me very clearly, in that I
Mhm.
go in chronological order.
Mhm.
So, and I've told these stories so often, so nothing's written down. I
Right.
don't tell the story maybe exactly the same way every time at every show, but it's the same story. And I certainly try and land the jokes,
Yeah.
but things may not be told exactly the same way. Um, and and I wanted it to feel, in many ways, off the cuff, and in many ways it is, because that's how it started. Because when I'm telling a story, I never write something down. I just tell
Mhm.
the story the way I remember it, and hopefully that's, mildly entertaining to an audience.
I think people will be really shocked when you were just so honest about, like, I don't have a gazillion dollars when it came out
Right,
of a very specific need. I mean, now there's the pandemic, so
right,
also how practical in terms of
sure,
how do you do something at this time. But I think people who are not in the Broadway world would be really shocked to know that just because you were in Rent didn't make you a gazillionaire. And I
right,
think now about how Hamilton has been compared and Lin-Manuel Miranda has very lovingly talked about Rent's influence on him as an artist and on writing
right,
this thing. And it, was newsworthy that people in that show were like, you know what, we are part of the creation of this thing. And there
yeah,
was a profit sharing thing that happened,
right, yes,
the details of which are personal to the members of that company. But when you
right,
think back to sort of what Rent has become globally, forget in the world of the MasterCard commercial, like what it means to people, priceless, and
Yes,
obviously what it
yes,
meant to you and the career you have because of it.
yes.
But what do you think about that?
Well, what I think about it is that we did it first.
Yeah.
we Jonathan made it, was obviously before he died, like he wanted us as a cast to share in the profits of the show if it ever became something. So we have it's a tiny percentage, but we amongst the 15 of us actually do share in that. And that's specifically at the wishes of Jonathan and at the behest of his family.
Wow.
So I think that I think it's great. I think it's I think it could be a fine line in a way between how much, and this is coming from an actor who's participated in this,
Sure,
but
sure.
how much how much is that worth?
Yeah.
Ultimately, how much is that worth? Because like I don't obviously know what their deal is,
Hmm.
each individual person in Hamilton and what their deals were,
Right.
but I would venture to guess that whatever minuscule fraction of a percentage that I could certainly assume it is would have been maybe more appreciated in the moment as like more salary. Pay the actors. And I'm not saying they didn't get paid well. I don't know what they got paid, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
there are other ways to compensate people, for that work. You know what I mean? And to show your appreciation for the work that they put in, you know what I mean? That maybe might actually be better than giving them some tiny little thing. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
That's between them. I'm just saying, I was just thinking about it off the top of
Yeah.
my head,
Yeah. Yeah.
pay me an
Yeah.
extra 2 grand a week for the next year.
Yeah.
Then we're cool. I mean, I don't know. Um, so, but I do think it's great, and I think that we, as this, as somebody who's originated roles as well, like we do bring quite a bit to what will ultimately be something that lasts forever. You
Yeah.
know,
You sort of joked before, or were being vulnerably honest before about, the give the people what they want. When did
right?
you sort of realize that? I mean, everyone talks about typecasting. Everyone realizes, like, I don't want to play Roger over and over again. And certainly when we look at your Broadway career, you have not. I mean, you've
Right.
really been able to sort of, I mean, you're in Chicago, I mean, you did so
Yeah.
many, Something Rotten, and have been able to bring your comedic skills, not just your incredible singular vocal talent, because
Thank you.
Roger as a character is not hilarious.
No, by no stretch.
It's not. And so after that show, people might not have even realized how funny you are and how you understand rhythm and timing musically and comedically, and how much you're capable of as an artist in terms of telling stories in other ways.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're
So kind.
welcome. But in terms of going, you know what, I can try to remove myself from being so aligned with the thing that made me famous, or I can embrace it. And you don't want to feel like, Paul Anka, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you.
Right.
By the way,
I
I love Paul Anka. I just want to
as do
say
I.
that.
Yes. I knew right after Aida that if I was going to continue to have a career, a long career,
Yeah,
something had to happen that like the next thing I did was going to kind of make it or break it
yeah.
for and the next thing was Cabaret. And so
Mm-hmm.
once I got Cabaret, I that really hit home. I was like, if I fail at this,
Oh
it's
my
over.
God.
I will only
Don't
ever be
fail at
seen.
this.
Yeah, I will only ever be seen as like that the rock guy who can. And so and so I was like, so it was a tremendous amount of pressure, but look, I aggressively pursued that job. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right,
Yeah.
you got what you wanted. What are you going to do with it? But I
And had a
aggressively
very short time to go in, right? Didn't
two
you have to
two
like,
weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. It's only ever 2 weeks. Yeah, which I've done many times since then. But yeah, so but I knew that if I could get this job and I could pull this off in a role that was like a real acting role, you know what I mean? Like this was like a role for like a real
yes.
actor. Like I knew that if I succeeded in that, I would be seen as something more, you know what I mean? Or something in addition to what I was already being seen as.
Yeah.
And so I definitely felt that pressure. And then it went great. It went really well. And it also what it did more than anything for me personally, what it instilled in me a respect for the craft of acting and for what we do that I didn't really have before. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I kind of took it for granted as like, oh, I'm just naturally talented and I can do anything. You know what I mean? Like I kind of took it, I took it for granted a little bit. And then I started to realize after Rent, certainly when Aida came along, that like, you know what? I'm not that naturally talented and I can't just like I have to work at certain things, you know, because I didn't get good reviews for Aida, you know, and so like I was like, oh, I'm not perfect, you know, and so again, these all of these things made me realize that like this next thing was very important. And then to me, it's the most fun thing about what we do is to I love nothing more than to literally disappear as much as I can. Like I always joke, like I should be in like who's the guy in Beauty and the Beast who's like a candle or like you don't even see all you see his face, but everything else is costume and stuff. Because I just love disappearing. You know, like the more costume and makeup and hair and accents and whatever it is. You know, like that's because that's what's so fun about what we do. We're playing pretend. We get to be somebody else, you know, um, and so I love to physically transform. That always helps my character. And all the shows that I've done, to one degree or another, I've gotten to physically transform in some way, or you know.
I I I just put on mute because of course suddenly there's like a dog, a fire truck, and four people talking right outside the window. But it's New York.
Of
It's your
course.
hometown. This is what's happening. And the F train is rumbling above me. Um, I know that everyone who gets a minute with you just selfishly takes a minute to say thank you publicly. And I'm going to be so unoriginal and thank you publicly
Oh
for
my
the
God.
endless amount of joy and comfort your voice has brought to me on
Oh
so
my
many
goodness.
occasions
Thank
in
you.
my life. And as you know from so many, the idea that you can then share this thing with your children, and then they
Yeah.
love it as much as you do, and you hear them singing in the car just as much as we did. I feel bad for you that you have never had the chance to sit in a car and listen to Rent and let it be and pretend you're in Rent and have it be the soundtrack to your life, because
No,
it
if
really is a
Rent ever
great
came on,
joy.
thank you. If Rent ever came on in the car, it was turn that off, Dad.
I
Oh, it's
get it.
you. Turn it
Oh,
off.
so embarrassing. I know. That's what's so crazy and humbling about all of it. Um, well, I want to ask you before you leave, and I really hope you'll come back again because I know you have a lot going on today. And I think you're on Stars in the House
I am tonight, this
also,
evening.
which is just the most extraordinary thing that has
I know.
raised so much money for the Actors Fund. It's
I know.
mind blowing.
Seth and
Can
James are
you
my buddies. I love them.
I mean, all hail Seth and James,
Yes.
and you for giving your time to it. Can you share a little known fact about you?
Okay. Hmm. Sure. My favorite job that I ever had when I was a kid growing up was as a girls' Catholic school, and I'm going to say more about this, was as a girls' Catholic school janitor when I was in college. But let me just say that I came in after all the girls were gone. So it's not like I walked around while they were there. No, but it was such a cool job. It was a disgusting job, and girls are just as disgusting as boys in the bathroom. But there was something really relaxing and calming. It was just me and two other dudes, and we went into this enormous, creepy old school out here on Long Island, and we would clean it up. You know, we mop the floors and clean the cafeteria and do all this stuff. Um, and there was just something really, I don't know, like almost meditative about it. You know, I loved
That's incredible. Adam, thank you
it.
for being on the show. Thank you for your cleaning skills
Thank
and
you. Absolutely.
for your talent and just your beautiful
Thanks, Ilana.
humanity. You're
Oh,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you.
Before we go,
Yes.
we're done with the episode. I did
Okay.
not know you guys had split up, and I'm
I know.
happy
I'm
to take
sorry.
that out.
No,
No,
it's fine. Leave it. Leave it. I'll
okay.
tell you why. Because I kind of want it to be known, but I
Yeah,
didn't. We didn't want to do any kind of public thing
it's
about it.
just a
But
natural, organic thing that,
but
yeah.
I would kind of like because I'm dating people, and it would be nice for people to not think that I'm
That you're
out on my
cheating.
wife, right?
Yes.
Which is why I'm divorced in the first place. So
Yes.
so I you know I so
Got
I
it.
kind of
All right, good. I just always check with people because I've
I
had
appreciate it.
lots of couples make announcements that end up being circulated,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to make sure it was okay. All right.
Yes.
Well, here's to new love
Thank you.
and all the work. And
Thanks, Ilana.
mwah.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye, sweetie. So
Bye.
nice to see
Bye.
you. Bye.
Nice to see you.